You know, Australia is a country that holds so many secrets that majority of people will never know. We have 7.7 million square kilometers and a tourism industry that has agreed only approximately 40 of them matter. The same 30 photographs recycled across every campaign since 1987, while the remaining 99% of the country, most of it extraordinary, some of it world significant, sits there without anyone telling you about it. I spent a long time on this. National park databases, government reports, the first-hand accounts of the small number of people who actually visit these places each year. I found 21. Stay with me, because what was discovered on a sheer rock face in the Pacific Ocean in 2001 is one of the strangest stories in modern natural science. Number 21. Bald Rock National Park. 28 kilometers north of Tenterfield, Northern Tablelands, New South Wales. Free entry, no facilities. Bald Rock is the largest exposed granite boulder in Australia. 750 meters long, 500 meters wide, 200 meters above the surrounding plateau. From the base, it extends to the horizon in two directions. It looks like a small mountain made from a single piece of stone, because that is essentially what it is. The summit is walkable from the base without climbing equipment. The granite is 330 to 360 million years old. What you walk on is the floor of an ancient magma chamber, exposed after hundreds of millions of years of overlying rock eroded away. The 2.6 kilometer return walk takes approximately 2 hours. I spoke with a retired teacher from the Central Coast who stopped there during a Queensland road trip. He said when the rock came into view, a grey-orange dome rising above the tree line, he stopped the car and sat for several minutes before getting out. He said it did not look real. Look, the trade-off? It is a genuine detour, and the summit walk becomes dangerously slippery in wet conditions. The granite has no grip when wet, and there are no guardrails. Go on a dry day. Number 20. Budjamala National Park. Lawn Hill Gorge, northwest Queensland. 340 kilometers northwest of Mount Isa. 1,837 kilometers from Brisbane. The last 100 kilometers from Gregory Downs is entirely unsealed. In one of Australia's most arid landscapes, Lawn Hill Creek runs year-round through a gorge of vivid blue-green water, fed by freshwater springs from a limestone plateau to the west. The color comes from dissolved calcium. The gorge walls are carved from sandstone approximately 1,560 million years old. Ripple marks from an ancient seabed are visible in the rock face. The Wanyee people have lived here for at least 17,000 years. Their name for this place, Budjamala, means rainbow serpent. In March 2023, floodwaters inside the gorge rose 30 meters. A $13 million restoration followed. The park fully reopened in July 2025. As of mid-April 2026, it is in its normal annual wet season closure, ending 24th April. Confirm at parks.qld.gov.au before traveling. 4WD recommended, no phone signal, book campsites online in advance. I spoke with a grey nomad who returned in September 2025 following the restoration. He told me the water was clearer than he remembered, the gorge was quieter, and he spent 3 days paddling and barely saw another person. He said he had been trying to explain it to people for years, and no one believed the photographs were real. The trade-off is honest. Remote destination, 100 kilometers of unsealed road, genuine preparation required. The reward is a tropical oasis of permanent blue-green water in the middle of the outback. Number 19. Cape Howie, Tasman National Park, Tasmania. 100 kilometers from Hobart. 10 kilometers return from Fortescue Bay Car Park. Allow 4 to 5 hours. National park fees apply. The Tasman Peninsula is best known for Port Arthur. Cape Howie, at the southern tip, requires a full-day walk and is virtually unknown outside the Tasmanian hiking community. The track ends at a headland directly above the totem pole, a freestanding dolerite column 65 meters tall and 3 meters wide, standing in the Tasman Sea below sea cliffs reaching 300 meters. The rock is 165 million years old. A British climber fell from the column in 1998, suffered a serious brain injury, and later wrote a memoir considered one of the significant pieces of climbing literature in English. The column is unchanged. I spoke with a woman from Melbourne who had visited the Tasman Peninsula 3 times without completing this walk. She told me a friend eventually made her go. She said she stood at the headland for 40 minutes without speaking. She said the wind at the Cape is a physical object. You do not encounter it, it encounters you. The trade-off is the full-day commitment. 10 kilometers of exposed coastal terrain, moderate to hard, no facilities at the Cape. Consistently described as the most dramatic coastal view in Australia. Number 18, remarkable rocks. Flinders Chase National Park, Western Kangaroo Island, South Australia. 2.5 hours from the Penneshaw Ferry Terminal. National Park entry fees. Most visitors who cross to Kangaroo Island go to Seal Bay and turn back. The remarkable rocks are at the far western end and require another hour of driving. Most visitors never reach them. Granite boulders up to 75 tons, balanced on a coastal dome 75 meters above the Southern Ocean, sculpted over 500 million years by honeycomb weathering. Salt crystals growing in rock crevices, slowly fracturing the granite from within. Each boulder is unique. At sunset, the rock glows orange against the sky. They were cited as a design reference for the alien landscape in Close Encounters of the Third Kind after photographs circulated internationally. The description is accurate. They do not look like anything on Earth. I spoke with an Adelaide photographer in his early 60s who had visited Kangaroo Island 4 times before driving to Flinders Chase. He told me the rocks embarrassed him. He had been going to the island for 20 years with no idea they were there. Go at sunrise or sunset, not midday. The light is the difference between a photograph and an experience. Number 17, the Horizontal Falls, Talbot Bay, Maclady Range, Kimberley Coast, Western Australia. No road access exists. Accessible by seaplane from Broome only. Full-day guided tour. David Attenborough described the Horizontal Falls as one of the greatest natural wonders of the world. That sentence does not need embellishment. What keeps them off most Australian itineraries is that no road has ever reached them. The Kimberley Coast has a tidal range of up to 11 meters, among the highest in Australia. This force is pushed through 2 narrow gorges in the Maclady Range, the wider approximately 20 meters across, the narrower approximately 10. As the tide changes, the water level difference between the 2 sides drives water rapidly and continuously sideways through the rock gaps. Speedboats run through both gorges at speed. The experience of a boat held stationary against the current, then suddenly released, is not easily forgotten. I spoke with a woman from Perth who had been to the Kimberley 3 times and always assumed the falls were overhyped. She told me she was wrong. She delivered this information flatly, in the tone of someone correcting an embarrassing error. The trade-off is cost and access. Seaplane tours from Broome are expensive and run seasonally, best April to October. There is no cheaper or overland alternative. This phenomenon exists at a precise intersection of tidal force and rock. That intersection exists nowhere else on Earth at this scale. Number 16, Narracoorta Caves, Narracoorte, Limestone Coast, South Australia, 340 kilometers southeast of Adelaide. Sealed road access throughout. National Park entry fees apply. Narracoorta Caves is UNESCO World Heritage, jointly listed with Riversley in 1994 as the Australian fossil mammal sites. Most Australians have never heard of it. Inside the caves, bones of Pleistocene megafauna are visible without excavation. Diprotodon, a wombat relative the size of a small car. Thylacoleo carnifex, the marsupial lion. Giant, short-faced kangaroos. Animals fell through natural sinkholes over 200,000 years and were preserved in calcium carbonate sediment with extraordinary precision. This is one of the world's most complete fossil records of extinct Pleistocene mammals. The Bat Cave holds more than 200,000 southern bent-wing bats. From August through April, at dusk, they emerge in a continuous spiral column lasting up to 30 minutes. The sound is audible before the column is visible. I spoke with a guide who has led the Dusk Emergence tours for 11 years. She told me that even after hundreds of emergences, when the column begins to spiral, she still stops talking. She said international visitors come specifically for it. Australians, in her experience, usually arrive by accident. Number 15. Croajingolong National Park, Point Hicks, Far East Victoria, 450 kilometres from Melbourne, 88,355 hectares. UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve since 1977. Victoria is Australia's second most populous state. Croajingolong is one of only 12 UNESCO World Biosphere Reserves in the country. Nearly 1,000 native plant species, 315 animal species, including the eastern bristlebird, one of Australia's most endangered. Almost nobody in Victoria knows it exists. Point Hicks Lighthouse is 37 metres tall, the tallest on the Australian mainland, completed 1890, accessible only by a 2.2 kilometre walk from the nearest car park. The headland beneath it is the claimed site where Lieutenant Zachary Hicks, aboard Cook's Endeavour, made the first European sighting of the East Australian coast on the 19th of April 1770, 11 days before Botany Bay. The keepers' cottages are available as holiday accommodation. Southern right and humpback whales are visible from the lighthouse platform from August through December. The Thurrow River Bridge, destroyed in a 2022 flood, reopened September 2025. Lighthouse tours run Friday to Monday. Free, maximum 12 people. Check parks.vic.gov.au before visiting. I spoke with a Victorian man in his early 50s who had spent his entire life in the state and learned about Croajingolong by accident. He told me, standing on the lighthouse platform with open ocean in 3 directions and no development visible anywhere, produced a quality of quiet he had not found in 50 years of living in Victoria. The trade-off, 450 kilometres from Melbourne and another 46 from the highway turnoff on a gravel road. This is worth the distance. Number 14. The Drip, Goulburn River National Park near Mudgee, New South Wales. 40 minutes from Mudgee, 1.4 kilometres on foot. Free. Wiradjuri Land, a 10-metre sandstone wall that weeps water, continuously, year-round, in all seasons. Water absorbed into the porous upper rock cannot drain through the impermeable layer below and is forced sideways, emerging as a constant curtain of moisture across the cliff face. The constant moisture supports a living wall of orchid, fern, and moss. Dense green and purple against orange sandstone in the middle of dry eucalypt bushland where none of it has any right to exist. The sound is continuous dripping water in country where you expect only dry wind. I spoke with a Sydney woman who had been visiting the Mudgee wine region for 15 years before a local farmer mentioned the drip in passing. She went the next morning. She told me she stood in front of the wall for a long time and that the sound of dripping water in country that dry is something she still thinks about months later. The trade-off is expectation. This is not dramatic on the scale of a sea stack. It is quietly, persistently extraordinary. Those are different things and require a different kind of attention. If you've made it this far, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with your friends and families. It's completely free, and we bring new videos about our country. Number 13. Tunnel Creek, West Kimberley, Western Australia, near Fitzroy Crossing. 4WD recommended on the access road. Bring your own torch. This is not a suggestion. Tunnel Creek is a 750-metre natural tunnel through the Napier Range. A Devonian-era coral reef formed 350 million years ago. You wade through it in ankle-to-knee depth water in complete darkness. Halfway through, a section of collapsed roof creates a skylight. Sunlight from directly above a subterranean river. A circle of open sky in the middle of a cave, with bats in the walls and freshwater crocodiles visible in torchlight in the pools below. Tunnel Creek was the base of operations for Jandamarra, a Bunuba warrior who conducted a guerrilla campaign against European settlement between 1894 and 1897, using this tunnel as his refuge. He had previously worked as a police tracker. He evaded capture for 3 years. He was killed at approximately 23 years old and is now one of the most significant figures in Australian Indigenous history. The crocodiles he shared this tunnel with are still there. The tunnel has not changed. I spoke with a woman from Brisbane who had done a 3-week Kimberley trip. She told me Tunnel Creek was the only place on the trip that made her genuinely anxious. She said it had nothing to do with the crocodiles. She said she would go back. Water depth increases after rain. Ask locally about current conditions before entering. Number 12. Katithanda Lake Eyre, far north South Australia, 700 kilometres north of Adelaide. Scenic flights from Marrie or William Creek year-round. 4-wheel drive access to the lakeshore in dry conditions. Australia's largest lake is usually not a lake. It is a salt flat, 15 metres below sea level at Australia's lowest point, blinding white in sunlight with mirages at every horizon. It fills when exceptional rain in Queensland's Channel Country overwhelms the dry creek network. This happens approximately 3 times per century. When full, it is 9,500 square kilometres of shallow inland sea in red desert visible from space. The Arabana people call it Katithanda, big lake with waves. In July 1964, Donald Campbell set the world land speed record at 648 kilometers per hour on the dry surface. Always check current water levels with Marrie and William Creek operators before traveling. The salt flat is not a consolation prize. It is a different category of extraordinary. The trade-off is uncertainty. You cannot plan around full water. Accept what you find. Number 11. Cape Le Grand National Park, 50 kilometres east of Esperance, southern Western Australia, 720 kilometres southeast of Perth. Sealed road access. National Park entry fees apply. The sand at Lucky Bay squeaks underfoot, not metaphorically. It is composed of almost pure quartzite grains, uniformly sized from millions of years of wave sorting, and produces an audible squeak with every step. The water above it is a specific turquoise, a deep cyan produced by white quartzite reflecting light upward through clear water, not found elsewhere along the WA coast. Wild kangaroos rest on the beach year-round and share the sand with swimmers without concern. Behind the beach, the granite peaks of the Cape Le Grand range provide day walks with panoramic Southern Ocean views. I spoke with a man who grew up swimming at Lucky Bay, then moved to Melbourne for 3 years. He said people asked to see photographs of his childhood beaches and did not believe they were real. He moved back to Esperance. He said the decision was not difficult. The trade-off is the distance. 720 kilometres from Perth requires commitment. Cape Le Grand and Esperance consistently reward it. Number 10. Wolf Creek Crater, Great Sandy Desert, Western Australia. 145 kilometres south of Halls Creek via the Tanami Road. 4-wheel drive only, no entry fee. Carry emergency water and a satellite phone or PLB. In 1947, a government surveying aircraft spotted a mathematically perfect circle in the red desert. 880 meters in diameter, 60 meters deep. A white salt pan at the center, rim still elevated above the surrounding land. The Jaru Aboriginal people had known it for tens of thousands of years and called it Kandamalal. European scientific literature did not record it until that aircraft flew over it. It is the second largest intact meteorite impact crater on Earth's surface, formed approximately 300,000 years ago. Standing inside the crater is a precise spatial experience. The rim rises in a perfect circle above you. Complete silence. The awareness that a rock from space created this bowl before any living human was born produces a specific kind of stillness. The trade-off is serious outback logistics: four-wheel drive, full supplies, emergency communication. The location does not accommodate being unprepared. Number 9. Lake Bumbunga, near Lochiel, mid-north South Australia, 140 kilometres north of Adelaide, near the Clare Valley wine region. Free to visit, two-wheel drive, accessible. Australia's most famous pink lake, Lake Hillier, off the WA coast, has not been pink since early 2022. Extreme rainfall flooded it with soil from the surrounding island and turned it brown-grey. Tourism WA's official website acknowledges the colour change. Scenic flight operators stopped running tours. As of April 2026, it has not recovered. Recovery timeline remains unknown. Lake Bumbunga is why this matters. It is a naturally cycling pink salt lake that turns shades of pink, purple, and deep crimson depending on season and salinity. The colour mechanism is the microorganism Dunaliella salina producing beta-carotene in response to intense sunlight, combined with halophilic bacteria in the salt crust, the same mechanism as Lake Hillier, in a system that retains its cycle reliably. In dry conditions, the lake can appear almost magenta. The shallow surface reflects clouds and sky at sunrise against flat South Australian farmland in a way that is genuinely startling. It is 140 kilometres from Adelaide. Most South Australians have never been. No facilities on site. Colour is most vivid late summer through autumn. No boat or plane required. Number 8. The Noosa Everglades, Great Sandy National Park, Queensland. Access from Boreen Point, 40 minutes from Noosa Heads, by kayak, canoe, or guided eco-cruise. There are 2 Everglades systems in the world. One is in Florida. The other is 40 minutes from Noosa Heads, and the millions of people who visit Noosa each year almost never go there. The Noosa Everglades stretches 60 kilometres of waterways through paperbark and tea tree forest inside the 240,000 hectare Great Sandy National Park. The water is dark amber black from dissolved tannins leaching from surrounding vegetation. On calm mornings, the surface becomes a mirror so precise that sky and forest reflect without distortion, which is why local tour operators call it the River of Mirrors. More than 40% of all Australian bird species have been recorded in this single system. No roads enter the Everglades. At night, bioluminescent algae trace light around every paddle stroke. I spoke with a kayak guide who runs multi-day paddle camping trips through the system. She told me her clients are almost exclusively international visitors. She had been guiding for 8 years and could count on one hand the number of Queenslanders who had booked a multi-day trip. She said she finds this genuinely difficult to understand after spending 3 days inside it. The trade-off is access. The Everglades do not reveal themselves from the shore. You need to get on the water. Number 7. Keep River National Park, Northern Territory. 468 kilometres west of Katherine via the Victoria Highway, 3 kilometres east of the NT/WA border, 2WD accessible on formed gravel during dry season, no phone signal inside the park. The NT government's own website describes Keep River as one of the Northern Territory's best kept secrets. That is an unusual statement for a government agency to make. It is demonstrably accurate. Keep River contains striped sandstone formations closely resembling the Bungle Bungles. The similarity is not coincidental. The NT/WA border cuts through the same ancient rock system that produces the Bungle Bungles 3 kilometers to the west. One side of that border is UNESCO World Heritage and receives visitors from around the world. The other side has no listing, no national profile, and almost no visitors. The geology is identical. The Jarnem Walk is a 7-kilometer circuit through eucalypt woodland, past striped sandstone ridges and canyons with ancient rock art at 2 points along the trail. The traditional custodians are the Miriwung and Gajirabeng peoples. Thousands of travellers drive the Victoria Highway between Katherine and Kununurra each year. The park entrance is clearly signed from the highway. Most do not stop. I spoke with a couple from Canberra who had stopped on the recommendation of a roadhouse owner near Kununurra. They stayed 2 nights and walked the Jarnem circuit alone without seeing another person in the park. They told me the rock art was the most affecting thing they encountered on the entire trip around Australia. The trade-off: corrugated roads inside the park, no phone signal. Book campsites online before arriving. Number 6. Ball's Pyramid, Pacific Ocean, 23 kilometers southeast of Lord Howe Island, 600 kilometers east of the NSW mainland, accessible by boat tour from Lord Howe Island. Ball's Pyramid is the tallest volcanic sea stack in the world, 562 meters, almost sheer, rising from flat Pacific with no other land visible in any direction. The eroded remnant of a shield volcano that formed 7 million years ago, part of Zealandia, the largely submerged continent that includes New Zealand and New Caledonia. In June 2001, scientists discovered on a ledge of this rock, under a single Melaleuca shrub at 100 meters elevation, 24 Lord Howe Island stick insects, a species presumed extinct since 1920. Rats from a shipwrecked vessel had eaten the entire population on Lord Howe Island itself. These 24 insects had somehow crossed 23 kilometers of open ocean to reach Ball's Pyramid. Scientists cannot explain how. Rats cannot reach an isolated ocean rock. 16 were taken for captive breeding in 2003. Melbourne Zoo, Bristol Zoo, and San Diego Zoo now have thousands. Reintroduction to Lord Howe Island is planned. Lord Howe Island has a visitor cap of 400 at any time. Climbing Ball's Pyramid requires a formal application to the NSW State Minister. The trade-off is cost and remoteness. Lord Howe Island is not cheap or close, but 24 insects under one shrub saved an entire species from extinction. That rock is there. It can be seen from a boat. Number 5. Purnululu National Park, Bungle Bungle Range, East Kimberley, Western Australia, 304 kilometers south of Kununurra. Opens approximately 1st May annually. High clearance 4-wheel drive required. 53-kilometer unsealed access track from the highway. In 1983, a helicopter pilot showed a documentary film crew a range of beehive-shaped sandstone towers in the Kimberley. The broadcast triggered a tourist season within months. The domes are 350 to 360 million years old, banded in horizontal stripes of orange and dark grey, iron oxide staining alternating with cyanobacterial crust, forming the most outstanding example of cone cast in sandstone anywhere on Earth. UNESCO listed it in 2003. The Gija and Jaru peoples had known about this place for tens of thousands of years. In 1983, a helicopter showed everyone else. The park receives 30,000 to 40,000 visitors per year, comparable to Mungo National Park. Cathedral Gorge is a natural amphitheatre of red rock large enough to hold a concert. Echidna Chasm has walls 200 metres high and barely a metre wide, lined with ancient Livistona palms. At midday, a precise column of sunlight descends into the chasm for a few minutes. The trade-off: high clearance, 4-wheel drive required, 53 kilometers of unsealed track, caravans not permitted on the access road. Opens approximately 1st May. The formations are 350 million years old. They will wait. Number 4, Kurrajini National Park. Pilbara, Western Australia, 1,400 kilometers north of Perth. 627,422 hectares. In 2025, 41 kilometers of new sealed roads were completed, making the park 2-wheel drive accessible for the first time. The most spectacular landscape in Western Australia. Most Western Australians have never visited. The gorges drop up to 100 meters through banded iron formations created when cyanobacteria first began producing oxygen on Earth 2.5 billion years ago. The walls of Kurrajini document some of the first biological activity in Earth's history. Fortescue Falls flows year-round. Fern Pool is a sacred Banijima site, a freshwater pool ringed with ferns at the base of a waterfall. Hancock Gorge narrows to a body-width passage before opening to Kermit's Pool, its walls glowing green from algae. The water at the bottom of these gorges is cold enough to cause hypothermia in cooler months. The 2025 road upgrade removes the previous 4 WD requirement for the main gorge areas. The distance remains 1,400 kilometers. I spoke with a woman from Perth who had driven the distance twice. She told me when she first reached the bottom of a gorge, descending through 38-degree surface heat to cold dark water at the base of 100-meter red walls, she sat there for a long time without wanting to come back up. The trade-off is only the distance. The 2025 sealed road upgrade makes the gorges accessible. The 1,400 kilometers is what it is. Number 3, Mungo National Park, Walls of China, Outback, New South Wales, 110 kilometers northeast of Mildura, 6 hours from Melbourne, 11 hours from Sydney. Mungo receives 37,000 visitors per year. The Blue Mountains receives approximately 3 million. Mungo contains the oldest known ritual cremation site in the world. In 1968, geologist Jim Bowler discovered Mungo Lady on the shores of a dried lake bed in Outback, NSW. Cremated with ceremony, the ashes gathered and reburied approximately 42,000 years ago. In 1974, he found Mungo Man buried with ochre. These remains proved that Aboriginal Australians were practicing sophisticated spiritual customs when Europe was still in the Old Stone Age. In 2003, a collection of 20,000-year-old fossil human footprints was discovered here, the oldest outside Africa. Access beyond the boardwalk is through licensed guides from the Pakanchi, Nyampa, and Muti Muti peoples. The Walls of China is a 33-kilometer crescent of eroded sand and clay, an ancient lakeshore, arcing around the dried bed of Lake Mungo, empty for 18,000 years. The formations shift from khaki in the morning to gold in the afternoon to deep wine red at sunset. The most consistent word visitors use is lunar. Entry is $8 per vehicle. Number 2, Undara Lava Tubes, 275 kilometers southwest of Cairns, far north Queensland. Guided tours only. Best visited April to September. 190,000 years ago, the Undara volcano expelled 23 cubic kilometers of molten lava, 3 times the volume of Sydney Harbour. The lava flowed down ancient riverbeds, crusted over at the surface, continued to flow inside, then drained away, leaving hollow tubes behind. The main flow is 160 kilometers long, the longest lava tube system produced by a single volcano anywhere on Earth. Bayless Cave alone is 1,300 meters long, 11 meters high, and 22 meters wide. More than 70 caves have been surveyed. 6 are open to guided tours. The rest remain unexplored. David Attenborough visited in 1991 and described the system as the most unexplored natural feature in the world. The Collins family has farmed this land since 1862, 6 generations, and is believed to have discovered a new cave in the system as recently as 1992. At dusk, thousands of bats emerge from the cave roofs in a continuous cloud lasting 15 to 20 minutes. Inside the tubes, Gondwana-era plant species survive in a cool microclimate the lava rock has maintained for 190,000 years. Number 1. Paranella Park. Meena Creek, far north Queensland, 120 kilometres south of Cairns. Fully operational, daily guided tours and night tours, all standard vehicles welcome. Between 1929 and 1935, a Catalan immigrant named José Paranella built a Spanish-style castle complex in the Queensland rainforest, by hand. He had arrived in Australia in 1913, worked 11 years as a sugarcane cook, saved enough to return to Spain to marry, and came back to build the thing he had imagined since childhood. He mixed concrete from sand he carried up the grand staircase himself. He used railway track as rebar. It was what was available in far north Queensland in the 1930s. He planted 7,000 trees. He built a ballroom, a cinema, a fountain, bridges, a hand-carved tunnel, and Queensland's oldest private hydroelectric system, installed 1934. He built it as a pleasure garden for public enjoyment, not a private estate. He died in 1948. His fingerprints are still in the plaster. Cyclones and floods over the following decades left the structures in ruin. Walls draped in tropical vines, waterfalls cascading past moss-covered balustrades, light filtering through canopy onto cracked concrete. Current owners maintain and preserve rather than rebuild. The hydroelectric system was restored in 2009 for $450,000 and now powers the park and returns electricity to neighbouring properties. At night, 30,000 lights illuminate the ruins through ferns and falling water. Heritage listing came in 1997. The park has won tourism awards continuously for over 25 years and remains essentially unknown to most Australians. I spoke with a woman from Melbourne who had stopped at Paranella Park because the highway sign mentioned a castle, and she was curious. She told me she walked through the ruins for 2 hours and then sat by the creek for another hour. She said she found it difficult to explain to people who had not been there what made it affecting. She kept returning to the fingerprints. His fingerprints in the plaster. The fact that he did not know whether anyone was coming. Every place on this list shares one quality, not remoteness. Not that it is free. Not that it is dramatic in the conventional sense. What they share is that they are genuinely extraordinary, and Australia's tourism system has spent approximately no effort telling you about them. The reasons are not mysterious. Marketing budgets go to the places that already have marketing budgets. The rest sits there. If you know a place that belongs on a future list, put it in the comments. The next video from this channel goes somewhere different. 21 places in Australia that once had postcodes, post offices, schools, and children, and now have nothing. If that is of interest to you, the subscribe button is below this video.